What's up, 302 Bird Nation, 302 Mafia? All right, so right now I'm filming this on Monday, July 31st, but chances are you're probably watching this on the live show August 9th. The point is, I was sitting there thinking about it, and on the beach last week, chilling, vacation mode, you know how it is. And I thought about, we don't really know what the legal situation is with Jalen Carter as a fan. We haven't really heard about it. It's kind of been undisclosed. He's playing, but we don't know what could happen midseason. So I brought in an expert for you guys. I brought in a legit Eagles fan lawyer. Yes, I said that right. An Eagles fan lawyer. So not only can this guy defend you, but I mean, he's going to be with you at the tailgate too. I got to thank my guy, Bill, for coming on the show tonight from Legal Hands to the Face podcast. Just starting off in February, we were just talking about, and already have amassed over 6,000 followers on Instagram. So make sure to drop a follow to them on there too. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good, Dalt. Thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, man, thanks for coming on. We're happy to have you. I mean, what is your thoughts on this whole Jalen Carter situation as a fan with a law perspective? I mean, you get where I'm coming from. I mean, it's been quiet.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm an attorney, but I'm really a wannabe Philly sports talk guy. So I have the Eagles podcast, and I hope and pray that my day job doesn't intersect with my dream job, because you never want the law and the Eagles mix, because it's not going to be good news. So with Jalen Carter, though, I mean, this is exactly the type of law that I practice, which is these civil lawsuits. I did civil law, filed personal injury lawsuits exactly like this. Never in Georgia. That's where this one's going to be venued. But it really should not be that much of a distraction, and definitely not a surprise to anyone involved. Jalen Carter, the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles. Whenever there's a criminal matter like this, where people are injured, and unfortunately in this case killed, there's going to be a civil lawsuit that follows. So I know that Jalen Carter and his team, they had to know that this was coming. They anticipated it. It's just the timing wasn't great. There was a lawsuit filed in May, and now a second lawsuit gets filed July 13th. And fans, we hear the numbers. They're seeking over $40 million, and it just brings all of this stuff back into the news. But it really shouldn't have been that much of a shock to anyone, including the most important people, the NFL. If they were going to take any sort of disciplinary action against Jalen Carter, that would have happened simply because of the criminal aspect of the case, not because this civil lawsuit was brought.
And, I'm pulling up a quote right now that Jalen Carter says the other day. And it's funny because in Jalen Carter's world, this is non-existent. He's a kid playing football. He said a couple days ago, I'm ready to turn up, make a big impact this season, every game. I'm ready to kill the Cowboys. Everybody got beef with him. I might as well join the wave. Now, look, I love that attitude. I love that hunger. For me, it's just I don't know if I would be going out there saying all this stuff right now, at least until things kind of smooth over. Your first season, I think it might be wise to just be a rookie, if you know what I mean. Kind of keep quiet, hang low, keep with the team, intertwined, immerse yourself with the team. Don't really worry about immersing yourself in the public, per se.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the hard thing is for this guy is he was 21 years old when this happened. And obviously what happened was horrible, and our heart goes out to the families involved, especially the ones who lost a loved one. But you look at it from Jalen Carter's perspective, only 21 years old. He's 22 years old now. He's a young kid. He's trying to find himself. You enter the NFL, like you said, it's your first season. And I think it's human nature. He probably wants to start embracing the fans, wants to be liked, knows that you say you hate the Cowboys, you're going to be loved in Philadelphia. I'm sure everyone told him, hey, just say you hate the Cowboys. But yeah, was his use of words the best? Definitely not. Definitely not. But, what's interesting too is this lawsuit people, may read. It's not only against Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was not driving the vehicle that Devin Willock was in when he passed, and was not driving the vehicle that Victoria Bowles, who recently filed the lawsuit, was in. The person driving that vehicle was a University of Georgia staffer named Chandler LaCroix. And LaCroix's blood alcohol content was twice the legal limit, came in at 0.197. So, a lot of people hear the facts, and you don't hear everything. You just know, oh, Jalen Carter was involved and people were killed. Well, Jalen Carter, what he was involved in was allegedly was racing Chandler LaCroix and then left the scene, but was not in the vehicle or driving the vehicle of anyone that was injured or killed. Not that it absolves him entirely, but it's important to note because he's not the only person that's being sued. In addition to Jalen Carter, obviously the driver of the vehicle, Chandler LaCroix, was sued past, so it's the estate of Chandler LaCroix. But they also brought lawsuits against the strip club that they were at, as well as the University of Georgia Athletics. And the reason they brought the case against the strip club is because most states, and Georgia is one of them, have what's called dram shop.
And what's that?
And a dram shop action is if you can prove that a bar or a restaurant that serves alcohol served to a visibly intoxicated person, then they share in the responsibility. So if they kept serving Chandler LaCroix and then let Chandler leave their establishment knowing that they overserved this individual and let them leave, they can be held responsible as well. And then what they brought against the University of Georgia was almost a negligent entrustment theory, saying that they should have known that this person had a bad driving history. They never should have had them involved with the team and doing all these other things. I don't know how strong of a case that's going to be. And then they also sued the car dealership that leased Jalen Carter the vehicle under the same theory, saying you should have known Jalen Carter sped a lot because before this incident, he had 3 tickets apparently for speeding. So all of you hear these numbers and you hear these 40 million in damages, but that's not all against Jalen Carter. There's other parties involved and other parties that from the outside, and I don't know the full details, but from the outside looking in, you would think would have more culpability than Jalen Carter would. Jalen wasn't driving the vehicle. Chandler LaCroix was. Chandler LaCroix was twice the blood alcohol content limit in the state of Georgia. So there's other parties involved here. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. Not to bore you too much with the legalese, but they also...
No, I'm loving it because I didn't know any of this stuff, man. And, like, I'm glad that you're kind of, like, hitting home the facts because I'll tell you from an inside perspective, like, as an even, like, an Eagles insider, I have no clue what happened that night inside the car. So don't worry. I mean, you're not boring me at all. I'm actually kind of glad that you're clarifying the facts for us because, I mean, it sounds like he's just being targeted, of course, because he's an NFL player and he has the money out of anybody. And it's really sad to say that. I mean, not to take any culpability away from him. Should they have been drinking, driving, racing? Does he probably know some stuff that we don't know? Unfortunately, yes. But unfortunately, also, I think Jalen Carter might be having his leg pulled a little bit here, too, just because he's an NFL player, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, we're Jalen Carter, and none of us, I guess, know exactly what happened that night. But it does appear that he was speeding, he was street racing. And I think what a lot of people had a problem with was that the allegations were he also left the scene.
That's suspect.
Knowing that some of his friends may have been injured. And we don't know that. That's never been proven, but that is what's being alleged, is that he left the scene. But what the other part of this lawsuit against Jalen Carter, it included what's called punitive damages. Now, in every lawsuit, usually what is sought is compensatory damages, meaning damages that are meant to compensate the injured person for their pain, their suffering, their lost wages, their medical bills. It compensates that individual for their damages. Defendant. So they included a count for punitive damages against Jalen Carter in the amount of $10 million. In the state of Georgia, and it's similar to most states, in order to get punitive damages, the standard is extremely high. So they have to allege it in the complaint. Doesn't mean they're actually going to be able to get those damages. But you have to prove that it was a willful disregard for human life. I mean, it's got to be a very serious standard. It's willful misconduct, malice, fraud. It's not easy. And in a civil lawsuit, talk a little bit of legal terms, most of you guys have heard of what's called beyond the reasonable doubt. When you're talking about a criminal matter, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil lawsuit, it's preponderance of the evidence. Now, when I used to do trials, I used to explain to the jury, it's similar to the O.J. Simpson trial. In the criminal court of law, he was found not guilty because the jury said they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did the crime. But when he was sued civilly, they came back and awarded damages to the family of Ronald Goldman because the standard was different. You don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. You only have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence. So what that means is it more likely than not? So I used to explain it to a jury. If you're looking at the scales of justice and it tips even a feather's weight in favor, it's been satisfied. But in punitive damage cases, they raise that standard, not to beyond a reasonable doubt, but to a standard that's called clear and convincing evidence. Clear and convincing evidence falls somewhere in between. It's not as light of a burden as preponderance of the evidence. It's not as strong of a burden as beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's somewhere in between. So there's a lot of interesting legal elements to this case because they have the claims against not only Jalen Carter, the car dealership, the University of Georgia, the strip club. There's punitive damages allegations. So there's a lot going on. But what does all this mean as Eagles fans? I think the main question is this going to be a distraction for Jalen Carter? I don't think he's going to be disciplined in any way by the NFL for this. But what happens now is, Dalt, lawsuit gets filed. Jalen Carter has an attorney, as do the other defendants. They answer the complaint. And now a process known as discovery will start. And one of the first things that's done are written questions called interrogatories. Well, Jalen Carter is going to have to be involved with his lawyer in answering those written questions. And then the big thing that happens after that are depositions. And a deposition is a question and answer session where the lawyers for the two victims who filed lawsuits, Devin Willock and Victoria Bowles, their lawyers are going to be able to ask Jalen Carter questions under oath. And that's where it could become a distraction if this all goes down prior to the season. Now, I will say, though, Dalt, 95%, if not more, of these types of civil lawsuits settle long before a trial. It's very rare that cases get to trial.
That's what I was just looking up. Is there a trial date? Because I saw something about probation for a year in March. So are they taking their time basically with this case? And this is going to be something that like it won't even really matter this season and this will be a next season kind of issue, or?
Well, there's two different things. So in the criminal aspect, because they did charge him with reckless driving and street racing on March 1st of 23. He turned himself in right away and he pled no contest about 2 weeks later on March 16th. And the punishment he received was 12 months probation, $1,000 fine, and 80 hours of community service. So that's what happened in the criminal aspect of the case. Not really is any of that going to be used in the civil lawsuit. It's a completely separate case. Now, depending on how he pled and the laws of Georgia, sometimes you can use the plea in the civil lawsuit, but because it's a different burden of proof, as I was talking about earlier, that's all kind of on the wayside. So now the civil lawsuit begins. But it takes time because there's so many defendants involved and so many parties means there's a lot of lawyers. And I know this sounds really simple, but sometimes these things get delayed simply because of schedules. You have two plaintiffs in the estate of Devin Willock as well as Victoria Bowles. So those are two attorneys there. Then you got Jalen Carter's lawyer, Chandler LaCroix's estate's lawyer, the University of Georgia's attorney, the car dealership's lawyer, the strip club's lawyer. I mean, right there, you're talking about 7 different attorneys. So anytime something happens, a deposition, a court hearing, you got to coordinate with 7 different lawyers.
Wow.
And that's not easy sometimes. So that's why these things can get extended. I am sure that if it was up to Jalen Carter, if this matter can't resolve, that they're going to like to try to delay as much as they can until the offseason. But you just don't know. But they're probably in a process right now of what's called discovery. So they're most likely exchanging written interrogatories. And when will the deposition be? That's a question that they have not released.
Yeah, stay tuned. Like you said, I mean, as a fan and in my perspective, I'm really glad you came on with us to clarify a lot of this stuff because, I mean, I learned a lot. And it kind of sounds like this, I mean, for all of that to happen, the way I would put it is from my knowledge about the law, which is not very extensive, and my knowledge about the Eagles, which is very extensive, I don't think that this is going to all unfold within 7 months. I mean, it's a lot to happen unless, like you said, a settlement happens, something like that.
That's the only way. Yeah, the only way that this would be completely over in the next 7 months would be if it settles. If this matter has to go all the way to a trial in front of a jury, you're probably looking at another 2 to 3 years at least. These cases take a long time to get in front of a jury. It's not something that happens very quickly. Now, I don't practice in Georgia, but it also depends on the court's docket. How backed up is the court that this was filed in the University of Georgia? Because when COVID hit, it delayed everything because there were no jury trials for a very long time. So everything kind of got backlogged. Similar to like weddings. You know how many weddings you probably have gone to in the last couple of years? Same thing with jury trials. But yeah, this is stuff I don't like talking about. I know I'm an attorney, but I'd much rather be talking about the linebacker situation, the safeties, how good our offense is going to be with now having a pass-catching threat in DeAndre Swift. I don't want to talk about the law, so I hate when my legal career and my Philadelphia Eagles intersect.
Well, once again, we do appreciate you coming on, and sorry to do that to you, but I do appreciate you clarifying a lot of stuff because, hey, man, I know that you said you don't like to intertwine the two, but I will say I learned a lot during this that I didn't know about the whole situation. So thank you for coming on and kind of helping us understand the facts and the unknowns, most importantly, because that's not our decision to make. It's just something that, as fans, we're going to kind of see. We can kind of talk about, things, but we don't really know how it's going to unfold, how quick it's going to unfold. These are just like, predictions, of course. But I appreciate you coming on to kind of get, the mind thinking, because the one thing to say about Jalen Carter on a positive note is the impact that this kid is going to have. I mean, him next to Jordan Davis, man, how excited are you to see that for years to come?
Yeah, I was upset when Javon Hargrave left in free agency to go to the 49ers, but I'm really excited now about the interior of our defensive line. They brought back Fletcher Cox. I like that. I think the guy can still play, but I'm real excited not only about Jalen Carter, but like you said, another year of Jordan Davis. But I'm really high on Milton Williams. We've seen that guy get better year after year in his first 2 seasons with the Eagles, and now he's entering his 3rd year. And I don't know if you saw pictures of him. That
looks huge,
like a monster. So I think they're going to have a real nice rotation at that defensive tackle position, and they're all going to be pushing each other for playing time. You put those guys next to the defensive ends we're going to have, and now you add Nolan Smith into the mix. That defensive line is scary, man. They are scary.
Yeah, I can't wait. And just credit to Nolan Smith. Anytime we talk about him, I always bring it up. We were at the Eagles Autism Challenge this year, which was a really cool event. And because we had an event, shout out to Klondike Kate's in Newark, Delaware, an amazing bar right at the heart of University of Delaware. They helped us put on a fundraiser. So we raised over like $3,000 for the Eagles Autism Challenge, all off like $5 tips from college kids. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
But as a VIP, not even as a VIP, I should say, Nolan Smith is just walking around doing rookie duties, handing out waters. And the one thing I love is like when you're a kid and you're meeting Nolan Smith, I mean, not only is he a physical presence, like you're looking straight up at like, a 90-degree angle. It ain't like, hey, it's you're up there. But the point is, I mean, even me, I'm a like 5'7" adult and I'm like, God damn. But the point is like, he's such a nice guy. And he got down on the level. He's sitting there with the kids. One kid had like rain on his ball because it was a rainy day. He's like wiping it off with his shirt so that the autograph stays. And I think like a lot of people talk about Nolan Smith's athleticism. What I really like is Nolan Smith's mind. I think not only does he have that emotional intelligence like I just highlighted, which translates well to the field, he can read certain things, communicate that. But I mean, the dude has a great personality too. That is Brandon Graham's long-term replacement, and I was really happy with that draft pick.
Dude, I think you hit the nail on the head. I did a video on this on my social a couple weeks ago saying that just hearing Nolan Smith speak the few times I see that guy being a captain on this defense within the next couple of years. He just has that same enthusiastic, contagious smile that Brandon Graham has, but brings a work ethic along with it that's just phenomenal. So I'm really excited. I'm still shocked. Leading up to the draft, I did a bunch of videos on who I wanted the Eagles to get, and I kept saying I wanted them to either draft Jalen Carter, but if they couldn't get him, Nolan Smith. The fact that they were able to get both of these guys, I lost my mind, man. I still can't believe it.
It's insane. And I know I got to get you out of here because I've had you on here double the time already. I appreciate that. But how are you feeling about Ringo next year finally? I mean, finally under contract. How do you think that he's going to kind of fit in this rotation?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen enough of him. I know that he's got some rare natural ability and his size that everyone is excited about. But I don't know how much we'll see of Kelee Ringo this year. They're just so deep at that corner position, bringing Bradbury back, which, again, a great move. Restructuring Slay's deal. Avonte Maddox has to stay healthy, obviously. He's one of the best slot corners in the league when he's healthy. But you still got Zach McPherson. They still got Josiah Scott. They brought in Greedy Williams.
I completely forgot about that the other day. My buddy was like, yeah, you ready to see Greedy? Because I'm an LSU fan. He's like, you ready to see Greedy Williams? I'm like,
yeah.
We have him?
Yeah, so I don't know how much we're going to see of Kelee, but, I'm excited about it when the time is right. But does he get a lot of playing time this year? I'm hopeful that him, Sidney Brown, some of these young guys can at least help out on special teams, because I felt that as good as the Eagles were last year, that was an area that really struggled. They were able to get away with it all season long until it mattered most in the Super Bowl on that punt return, that Kadarius Toney. That still bothers me. But I think I'd like to see that special teams unit, especially our kick coverage, punt return coverage, needs to improve, and maybe these young guys can step in and hopefully solidify it.
Yeah, I think you hit, like you said earlier, I hit the nail on the head, you hit the nail on the head. Same thing. I want to thank you for jumping on here tonight, jumping on to talk some legal and some Eagles, of course, with me. Next time we bring you on here, I promise we're just talking Eagles, no legal. But I appreciate you kind of give us an expertise, because I had no clue even about the facts and just the way, you kind of bring the terminology and make it like, you a fan of The Office by any chance?
I've never watched The Office. Everybody always tells me I need to watch The Office. In fact, people in my office would say that I'm like the Steve Carell character.
That's exactly who I was going to bring up, Michael Scott. So it's funny. People at my job, they always told me I needed to watch it too, and I watched it, and it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. Hopefully, I pass the torch along to you one day. I know it's so difficult to watch TV, though. But he has this quote, and he goes up to his accountant, and his accountant's explaining the profit and loss, and he goes, shh, explain this to me like I'm an 8-year-old boy. And that was kind of how it was. You kind of sat us down and showed us stuff that we can understand it as fans. So I thank you for that. And guys, make sure to follow Bill too on Instagram at Legal Hands to the Face.
Yeah, check it out. Hopefully we're not going to be talking legal stuff, like I said, only because that means something bad happened to one of our Eagles. That's the only reason. But, if you ever need me, if anything does happen, I'm always happy to talk about the legal stuff. I just wish it didn't involve our Eagles. We want to talk about all positives. Last thing, that's the one beautiful thing we got going. Outside of what's going on with Jalen Carter, there's really no drama surrounding this team. They're going into the season with high expectations, no drama, really no injuries, knock on wood. I'm really excited. I know that the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing, but if there's any team that can get over it, I think it's this one.
Right there, brother. I hope so too. Thank you for jumping on once again with us, guys. Make sure to follow him on all platforms, and have a good night, everybody.